So for those of you watching, this is Elton here, my new friend, my new Twitter friend. We met on the Twitter machine with shared concerns, obviously, with what's going on in the schools. And I think we had been probably interacting with some of our tweets, but then this one in particular, when you had shown it, and then I shared with you what ours looked like. Um, I was about to message you, and you had already messaged me DM saying, "Can we connect?" And I was just about to say the same thing. Hey, if you want to have a conversation about this, let's do that. And then I think we spoke probably a few hours later or something. And so we thought we both wanted to kind of go through our policies for each of our school boards and kind of talk it out. And just because of time, we never have time to prepare for anything. So we're just kind of going to do this in real time. I'll cut to, because Elton actually delegated just this week. This week.
No, in November is
Oh,
was
okay.
the
And
first
then
time
they
I spoke in
discuss
front of the
it?
school board. Yeah, actually in September, I got a video I sent you too, where
Okay.
I asked all the candidates running for trustee if they agreed with keeping secrets from parents.
Ah,
So I sent
very
you a
good.
clip of that too.
You're already keen on that. Fantastic. Okay, so then let's cut to the video so people can see your delegation, and then we'll come and discuss the policy.
Time to stand up here. I appreciate it. Hi, I'm Elton Robinson, President of Parents for Parents' Rights. I am here to speak on policy PAD 38, Administration Procedure AP AD 69, reference number RAD 65, titled Gender Identity and Expression. As stated in the document, this policy sets out the board's practice in respect of school records for students based on accommodation requests related to gender identity and gender expression. The policy also references the Ontario Human Rights Code and that students have the right to self-identity and express their gender identity. It is important to note that safety is not mentioned in this regulation at all. Only human rights are cited, i.e. gender identity or expression, etc. Please know that, like you, we want to keep all students safe, and that includes 2S LGBTQ+ and marginalized students. That said, we believe the policy needs several amendments. We believe that there are marginalized children that need protection too, but we feel that a third-party advocate should be added in those cases where the educator feels they cannot reach out to the parents personally, that it would put the student in danger. Not all students should be excluded because most parents provide a safe and loving home, will support their children throughout their lives and challenges, and love their children unconditionally. Therefore, the policy should be amended to include a third-party advocate in specific situations. Our local Catholic board has a similar policy and is worded much differently. We have included copies of both of the regulations, ours and theirs, which includes, the Catholic boards includes guidelines for accommodation requests, including age ranges. For example, 16 or 17 years old, and specific guidelines for students 15 or younger with parents that are aware and supportive, and 15 or older with parents who are not aware or supportive. The Catholic policy ends saying, supporting the student and family is priority. However, our regulation has no age limit on making an accommodation request, and that such requests can be done with or without the parent's knowledge. We believe our regulation at the Greater Essex District School Board should be worded more like the Catholic school boards. We are asking for a motion to amend this regulation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so take us through this. What are some of your concerns? How did you discover this policy?
So back in September, before I was awakened to what's going on in our school system, and then that's branched onto a whole big rabbit hole that I never wanted to be in, but I'm here and this policy really spoke to me, but I found out about it because I was at my kids' parent council. I've always been involved in that. And two people that were pretty intelligent people one spoke on books that led me another rabbit hole. And the other one spoke about litter boxes and furries at a school. And it just happened that my daughter just left that school and out of our public board into a Catholic board. And that school that she was talking about with the furries, I had a 1.5 year experience with. So I called the principal the next day, and they denied it about the furries, which I know was a lie because there was furries there. My child told me there was furries. So somebody
Really?
sent me this policy after I got off the phone with the principal there. And when I read the policy, I have a younger daughter was in grade 1 at the time, well, grade 2. And it just scared the heck out of me when I seen this gender policy. because as people may be aware or not unaware, there is a lot of issues that happen in any workplace, but at a school board, there's issues that happen with teachers. And to have kids being taught by their teachers to keep secrets from their parents, I just don't think it's the right thing, especially you got to sign a permission slip to go on a field trip, but my kid can change their gender. So I got into this policy, and it's regardless of age, and it just scares the heck out of me because there is already a third-party mechanism put in place for marginalized children. So I don't know why they would leave all the power, why the school board would want that power, number one, because if anything was to go wrong, it all goes back to them. Why they wouldn't put a third party in to keep the relationship with the child and parent, I have no idea. And I feel personally that they're labeling all parents homophobic by the way the policy is written. I don't think they intended that, but if you show people this, it's very well the way they take it. And I've talked to transgender parents, and I've talked to my gay friends and other people about this because I've been talking about it since September. A lot of people believe that this policy shouldn't even exist, that your parents want to walk with their child. I would hate for my child to feel alone. Like Julia, she just spoke here on Tuesday and said it perfectly. She had to live a double life. She wishes she never had done that because her parents still love her regardless, right? They might not agree with it, but they still love her as her. So I feel the same way with my child. I would hate my child. I think any parent would not want their child to feel alone in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And for ours, I know ours here in the Waterloo Region District School Board is 21 pages. And
Wow.
I reviewed it a while back and highlighted, I have it right here, and markups, and we'll go through that as well. I'm not sure if we'll have time to do that together here, but I'll make sure to do that. But one thing, you nailed one very important thing right on the head, which is that why isn't there that bridge? Like, regardless of who we're talking about in this policy, I understand it's very specific to a specific population or labeled group or circumstance. Then where is the bridge, or where is the next policy that says, here's the policy to extend the bridge? Like, there needs to be a bridge of, if the parents are not supportive, it's not a secret that we want to maintain. We don't want to maintain a secret. The end result, the outcome we want, is a child who is well and thriving. And of course, that includes having a relationship with their parents and still doing well at school. And so where is that? And how is it just missing? And the other thing that you had mentioned too, that it sounds very similar without going through your policy yet, is that it's almost going out of the way to keep it a secret. It's almost going out of the way to not mention it to the parents. Like, I know for ours, you said something that triggered that for me, was regardless of the parent, like, and almost like it labeled every parent to be the same way. Of course we know that there are, of course we know that there are parents out there that are not really supportive of their children. Like, I'm not going to say that every single person who has a child are great parents, like, but it's almost as if, and maybe that's what it needs to be changed too, when dealing with parents that are not supportive, because never does it say like, if the parents are supportive, we proceed, go with this way. If you know that they're not, if the kid has said, then this is what you need to do. There's nothing about that. Right?
And that's the scary part to me, because they keep making it sound like, well, if your kids wanted to talk to you, they would talk to you about it. I'm saying, okay, that's cool. But what happens if you have a teacher that is a predator?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then what's the argument, Elton? What's the argument there? Oh, how many predators do we have? How many teachers are predators?
Yes.
Oh, well, how many parents won't accept their child and love them for who they are?
Like, well, the Minister of Education,
I have the policy at all.
It's got to be big, because I have the Minister of Education. One of the speeches that he made when they're talking about the new Bill 98 is that any teacher caught doing pedophilia or an act against a child, sexual, that they are barred for life. So if it's not a reality in the system, if it's not a reality in the system, why would the Minister of Education even bring that up?
It's, of course, a reality in the system.
Exactly.
Okay. So
just like the reality is, there's a lot of great parents out there that want to walk with their child because they don't want their child to be ever feel alone. I would never want my child. I've failed as a parent if my child ever feels alone.
That's right.
But
Okay.
you know what I forgot about, and we might want to go back to it, is I forgot that I got a trustee to make a motion to amend this policy. There's a story behind it.
Okay.
That a teacher in the school board called him and said if he didn't take the motion off the floor, he would be charged with human rights. He would pursue human rights charges against him, which he thought about it long and hard, and the school board even advised him to take it off the table. So they ended up rescinding the motion.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So ours is 21 pages, and it hypocrisies and things that like cognitive dissonance all over the place, like all over the place. So I'm excited. Oh, I'm not excited, but I am curious to see what yours says and how it compares to ours.
Well, when I spoke to my MPP, because I reached out to an MPP after I spoke to the board, he said basically our board just, I guess the government sent this out to the school boards to implement it. And I guess our board, Greater Essex County District School Board, just copied and pasted what was sent out, basically saying this is the way it is. That's why ours is 2 pages.
Oh.
Our Catholic school board has some guidelines of ages. So I'm really interested once I can dig into yours. When we go longer on, we got a petition that we started to make this hopefully hit somebody's eyes in the PC government to maybe relook at this with the Human Rights Commission.
Okay, so you had some highlighted areas here. I'll link this to the video so people can obviously review it for themselves. But let's kind of go through. I'm looking at time too, so let's look at some of the things that really stood out for you. So of course, it doesn't mean that there aren't other things that you'd have comments on, but I do see some highlights here.
The biggest one is there is no age limit on making an accommodation request. Young students have the same rights to privacy and to have accommodations made on their behalf, with or without their parents' or guardians' knowledge. That jumped when I first read this, and it's only 2 pages. That just screamed at me. And the other one was the next page where it goes into
let's talk a little bit about that though. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say accommodations need to be made. Like if you don't think that there's an age limit, or like I could see that if they just wanted to say, you know, young students have the same rights to privacy, which is true. Young students do have the right to privacy.
I would say privacy in their class. I wouldn't say privacy from their parents. We're responsible for everything with them, right? That's why this policy makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, if they, like you mentioned, I don't know if you said tattoo or ear piercing or whatever it is. Like, I mean, there's so many things that you wouldn't know. You would need your parents' pizza day, like a trip, like, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And yet this is something that is life or death. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then it's more important than a field trip, isn't it? Like, how can this be even remotely sensical to anyone?
Yeah, well, I've been trying to compute it since September, and I haven't had anybody explain to me yet how it would be even necessary to exclude a parent from anything, especially, again, going back to not nail on the head again, there's already a third-party educator in the school system for anything else for a marginalized child. So this, I would say, would fall under the same thing. If there's a marginalized child, that you would use that third-party mechanism. Why would the school board and us as taxpayers want to take that risk on?
No, that's not what we do. Like,
from a school board side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I know for me, I remembered just because I reviewed the first couple pages before we hopped on of my policy and realized it's going to take way too long to go through the whole thing. But is this accommodation request? I forget what they've worded it on mine, but it just screamed out like, what is an accommodation request? It's more like almost like a demand.
Yeah, well, me and my friends were talking about that.
You get anything you want, and it doesn't matter what it is, you get it because it's necessary for you to feel. What? So
why can't I identify as Maverick and say I want a jet out on the school ground, right, as an accommodation request to make me feel better? That's what I'm saying. I was a class clown. Like, if I knew this existed back when I was a kid, which it didn't, because this was made in 2021 in June, but it's endless.
Yeah. Oh, the
what you can have a
possibilities are
teacher
endless.
do. Yes, it's
Because you talked about, I mean, we say this and it seems insensitive. I am checking myself and it does seem insensitive to compare this to that. But let's compare
oh yeah,
to
100%.
furries. Let's compare to like, because as much as people want to say that's not actually happening, that's fake news. We have teachers who have seen things like the furries, and I didn't personally hear about the furries, but you're mentioning the furries,
Yeah.
and your kid saw it, and yet people are just saying it's not happening.
And I had a teacher the other day tell me they have a kid that dresses like a witch, like in a witch Halloween costume. She's been wearing it for the last 2 weeks.
I remember one of the Halloweens, I don't know if it was last year, they weren't allowed to dress up because it was distracting from the school day. But yet people are able to dress up as witches,
Yes, or
and
meow in
it's
classes.
not distracting. Okay. All right. So what's the next one that really stood out for you?
So on the next page,
Oh yeah,
I'm
yours
just
is
gonna
only two
flip it over.
pages.
Yeah, thank God. I don't know what I do with 21 pages. I probably still wouldn't be doing this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's exhausting, right? That's exactly
Oh,
it is. Oh,
sometimes I
they'll
think
get tired. They'll get
I
tired.
think,
They'll quit.
so,
No.
sometimes I think that is a hidden agenda. But
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of great people in this school system too. So
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
there may be circumstances in which the student seeking accommodation is not open about their gender identity at home. A school should never disclose a student's gender identity, chosen name, and or pronouns to the student's parents or guardians without the student's explicit prior consent. When contacting home, the student should be consulted first to determine an appropriate way to reference the student's gender identity, chosen name, and or pronouns. So now, why would a teacher ever call home? Usually because there's something going wrong at school. So now they're going to go, my daughter's Gabriella, and let's say she changed her name to Bob. So now they got to go to Gabriella in grade 2 and say, hey, Gabriella, are we saying when we call home, are we telling mommy and daddy it's Gabriella, or are we saying it's Bob? And
Yeah.
then when it's report card time, I feel bad for these teachers, and I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and they said last June was just crazy doing report cards.
Yeah. And then the whole pronoun thing of,
Yes.
making it neutral. Yeah, there's a lot going on with this. True North did a little piece on the pronoun thing. I had posted something, and there was a lot of comments made about, opinions on whether or not the pronouns should be made. If it's a big deal, why are you making a big deal about this? It's not even a thing. That sort of thing. And yeah, well, I mean, not that Twitter is a good representation of everybody's thoughts, but I mean,
Right.
there were a lot of comments saying that this is ridiculous and they don't stand for this, and it is a problem, and we do have to pay attention to this.
Twitter's basically the only place, though, not to promote Twitter, but where you can actually talk about stuff, though, too, right? But the problem is there's so much other stuff on there, too. So, yes, it dilutes it. But if we were to put the stuff that you and I talk about and other people talk about on Facebook, it'd get fact checked and thrown out. But we have facts. I will not post anything. I know you won't post anything without having facts that it's the actual truth.
Yeah. I think the difference between Twitter that I found was that, I mean, maybe because I haven't set my privacy, like my privacy settings on Facebook, for instance, you have set the people that are in your Facebook are people that you've allowed in, and that's it. Whereas Twitter, it's this public, you can have a random person that isn't connected to you in any way, but is connected to someone else who's connected to someone else who's connected to someone else. This random stranger with this totally other perspective on things might see it and comment, and now you're engaging with people that you have no idea who they are and may never probably ever know who they are, which is very different than something like Facebook. But
to go back to the pronouns too, we just did our business and finance report, and we did a survey for our budget, and the top 3 things on our budget were student mental health, teacher mental health, and I forget what the third one was, but the top 2 were mental health. And I think the boards keep thinking it's mental health of marginalized students and the inclusive and the diversity and stuff. But what I think what's happening is,
it's this.
I know from the teachers that I've talked to, I got 30 or 40 teachers that I talk to regularly, and the stress is from this. And I know I've spoken to other kids where they don't see themselves in the school anymore. They just see all this other stuff, which is important too, right? But they don't get a whole spectrum of them, right? Like we try to get a Christian flag to fly, right? Thinking because there's another flag to fly a Christian flag to represent our kids, because we can say we're marginalized now, we're prosecuted, right?
And hated
There's
on.
70
And
churches. Yeah, there's
and it's
70 churches that got
warranted. Like
burned.
it's
Yeah,
okay for people to do this. It's
yeah,
insanity.
like Ashby, a trustee
That's right.
for, right? Like,
And we had a
so
delegation specifically dedicated to Christians and the
yes,
neo or Christian fascists, and
yeah,
it was complete hate. And yet that
yeah.
didn't violate any human rights codes. Like you can
So
have a
I
delegation.
think that mental health stuff that they're seeing is this diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to look back at it and make sure we include everybody, just not historically marginalized, because what I think that they're doing good things for those groups because they do deserve that. But on the same token, they're also making people feel that my children have never done anything. They're just growing up just like yours, right?
Mhm.
Why should they have that burden of the weight of the world on them at such a young age?
Yeah, it's not about elevating those who hadn't been elevated. It's about bringing the other people who are considered to be elevated down. Like this
Yeah,
isn't
which
about like lifting anyone up. It's about let's bring everyone down and keep bringing everyone down. Because I mean, there's no other way to look at it. And when you look at things like this, and when people and the students see it, I mean, why else has violence and the bullying, why has it gone up? If
oh,
if this is
100%.
so brilliant, why has it gone up? And I can tell you why it's gone up. Imagine the kids at school today, like seeing how ridiculous this is. I mean, having other people just because of who they are, how they're born, or how they identify, now they're
Yeah.
elevated. And so like, what do you think that's going to cause within the school community?
Oh, it's a huge elephant in the room that nobody's talking about.
And there's resentment, and there's confusion. It's No, I don't think they're doing the right thing at all. At all. I think they're doing the complete opposite of what the outcomes they actually want to obtain here. Um, and so this is very similar. I remember reading something very similar to this in ours. And again, so you see that language. A school should never disclose.
Yeah.
Never is such an intense word.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
and when you see this translated, because again, well, I don't know if I mentioned it here, but the school board of trustees is a governing body, right? So they're not supposed to be in charge of the operational system of it. And so when you see that in practice, well, go back to Twitter machine. And we
Yeah.
have some of those teacher influencers. And there was one in Ottawa early on in the campaign and went through, how do you put this policy in process, right? What does this look like in real time? And she went through, slide by slide by slide. And this huge, like, never disclose it. You never know what's happening in a kid's family to know for sure. And I get it. Like, I get that. I'm not going to say that that's not true, but to
Right.
have that as the mentality of like, yep, oh, we're done now, because the answer is never. Like, we never. There's no bridge. There's no talking to the child in a certain way to make sure, like, don't you want your parents to know about this? And like isn't that something, like, if this is who you are, this is who you are, wouldn't it be
Exactly.
nice to be able to who you are all the time and not just at school? Like, well, I haven't seen anybody talk about things like that. It's
No.
always been, never tell the parents, it's not your job. And almost like a little bit of an ego trip for some of these people, eh? Imagine like being the person that the child wants to talk to and keep this little secret. The
Oh,
kids
yeah. I never
confide
thought of
in
that.
me more than they do their parents. Obviously, those parents are horrible parents. And look at me, I'm such a great teacher. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought of that.
wow. Uh, like, do we really want people like that teaching our kids? And again, we have really great teachers and they would never do that. I'm not speaking as if this is how every teacher is. I am saying that teachers like what I just
Yeah. Like the predator
described
teachers I said.
exist.
Yeah. For
It's wild that teachers like that exist to me. Why would we ever want anyone like that to be leading our kids?
100%.
Yeah. So it's very similar. I kind of skimmed through some of it. Right. I mean, if there's anything else you kind of wanted to go through, can you see the parentsrights.ca site? Is this your site?
Yeah, that's our site. It's
Okay.
under action items. French beside it.
It's a
You
cute site.
scroll. Yeah, one of our parents, Patsy's the one that does it. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see gender petition.
Yep. Oh, wait.
And then if you scroll down a little bit more, is that the petition there? Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about this petition.
So the petition states, whereas the education system in Ontario is an important coalition between parents, students, and educators. And whereas keeping parents informed of important developments in the lives of their children is essential to good cooperation between parents, students, and educators. Therefore, we, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly of Ontario as follows: that the Legislative Assembly of Ontario pass a law directing the Minister of Education to order all school boards in Ontario to amend all school board policies related to name changes and gender transition at school to ensure that parents and caregivers of children under the age of 18 will be informed prior to name or pronoun changes, social transitioning at school, or the offering of counseling regarding medical transition. So that's what we're running till the end of June. I'll see how many signatures we have by then, and we might extend it. But
if a student seems to be at risk at home by their parents for any reason, like for any reason at all, there is a procedure for that.
Yes. Well, why aren't they using
Julia
it?
mentioned that as well. Really good point,
Yeah.
right? Like there's already a procedure in place for that. So why wouldn't the hypocrisy here and the cognitive dissonance that I have a really hard time with is that we're talking about human rights. We're talking about treating people with dignity. And yet these individuals who choose to place these people in boxes like this are almost like, no, they're a subcategory of people. Like they're not even, they're like superhumans or something. Like they're not in the human box, because we already have a process for any child who may be, whose safety may be compromised. We already have a procedure for that.
To me, it's they're making them more marginalized than they already are.
That's right.
In their eyes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
we definitely don't want school boards sounding like that trustee in Waterloo that called Julia a minority of an already marginalized minority group.
Oh, Scott?
I still can't believe that.
I'm blessed to have a number of trans people in my life that I've spoken to on issues like this, and I have to say that their point of view is quite different than yours, and I'm wondering if you would acknowledge that perhaps you are in a minority in the trans community. You are in a minority in the trans community in taking this position.
Trustee, point of order.
That is a question of clarification.
Is unacceptable.
Yeah, insanity. Like I don't know if some of these people will ever see. I hope they do, but I mean, it's just preposterous, really.
Oh, 100%.
I wonder if having something like that though, indicating, hey, and just a reminder, if there are for anyone who's, who is concerned about students potentially being in danger, remember, we have a policy for that already.
Yes.
So, and here it is, and you can link it. Like, here it is.
Yeah. Actually, we should do that. Yes, you're right.
And then boom, because like we're not having the same conversation here, right? Like, thank you 100%. So much, Elton. Like, I know you're working really hard over there in Windsor. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's standing up and speaking out about all of this. So thank you.
Me too, sister. Likewise to you, sister.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon.
God bless. Bye.
Goodbye.